Hello and welcome, everybody. This is a show that we perhaps should not be doing. In the sense, we should not have to do a show like this. But we are, because the circumstances are such that the questions need to be asked and the opinions need to be voiced. That is why I have pleasure in welcoming some guests who are very close to me and some people who have made a difference to Indian tennis with all their lives. Mahesh Bhupati, multiple Grand Slam winners, one of the greatest to have played the sport. Imran Mirza, my guru and my mentor in tennis, in the sense he taught me the sport and how to understand it. Sania Mirza's father and coach. Vatsal, who runs Indian Tennis Daily. And we also had Somdevv Devvarman with us, who has sent us his answers. So it's a packed house. And the question we are asking to all of you who are joining us today, by the way, this stream is live on Twitter, this stream is live on YouTube and all our social media platforms. Plus, we will post out edited clips of it once this show is over. So you can actually ask your questions live and can send it to us on all our platforms to be asked to our guests. The question we are asking is the All India Tennis Association destroying Indian tennis? And Gargi and I will take these questions to all our guests. Gargi, delighted that you've agreed to join me because this is a very, very important show. Let me fire the first one for Mahesh, and then you can take this next one to Imran Bhai. Mahesh, you have, by your own admission, in the piece that you did for us, tried and failed. Can you tell us why that such a situation continues for over 2 decades with things not changing in Indian tennis, and we keep coming back to this kind of a situation where it is allegation and dirt being sort of smeared at players without any real basis out there? Mahesh Bhupati.
No, so that is exactly the question I'm asking, right, Boria? I think, unfortunately, it's been 3 decades of voicing frustration. Can't understand it. Can't understand how private emails between player and federation or player and captain get out into the public forum. That's just not ethical. And not to mention, as we all know, and how the frustration arose from, Mr. Anil Dupar, who we all know is serving his last 1 month in the AITA, has, gone down guns blazing by just accusing our number one player of faking a back injury. So all in all, it's just, years and years of frustration. And, we've done shows like this before, asking the same questions. Unfortunately, we're at the same spot. And I think, at some point it has to change.
Point it has to change. Some point it has to change. The question is when. With an election in 1 month's time, is that the opportunity? Gargi, over to you to ask your question.
Yeah, I'd like to go to Imran now. Given your experience with nurturing Sania's career, how do you see the current infrastructure for developing young tennis players in India? And what immediate steps, my question is, what immediate steps can be taken to give them a better pathway to success?
I think the biggest problem right now is that, without a star on the horizon right now, we've had Sania Mirza for 20 years, but we didn't use that opportunity to create another star. We've had Mahesh Bhupati, Liana Pace, but right now with Rohan Bopanna at the end of his career, we really don't have a star. And the interest in the game has definitely gone down considerably. I've been in the coaching industry now for about 12 years, hands-on. And I can say that the number of people coming in for coaching about 12 years ago and wanting to make it big in the international sphere has really come down, and that's one of the major worries. And unless you have a handful of talented people playing the game, how are you going to produce the talent? So I think the first thing we need to do right now is to try and increase the pool of players who are playing the game and those who want to do it internationally. That I think is woefully small people, a small number of people playing the game today for that reason. Yes, of course, the infrastructure in the country has never been very good. Whoever has made it, whether it's been Mahesh Bhupati, whether it's been Liana Pace, Sania Mirza, Rohan Bopanna, they've made it on their own steam with the family support, and that to me is a great worry, and that needs to change if you have to produce champions on a regular basis, and that's something that hasn't happened, at least in the 2 decades that I've been in the sport.
Mahesh, you made the point in that piece about AITA, sort of needing to involve a Sania Mirza, a Rohan Bopanna, and possibly a Somdevv Devvarman to not in elected capacities, but to invite them for their experience. Can you outline your thought process a little bit as to how what you are envisaging or what you are suggesting and how things can get better from here?
No, so it comes back to the basic principles in sport of having people who have done it in the past, lead the charge. I mean, there is a reason Rahul Dravid was brought in to do the under 19 team, right? There is a reason Pulela Gopichand is as successful as he is, churning out badminton players all the time. And that is just the natural way it's done across the world. And like I said in my article, I threw my hat in the ring saying that use me anytime. And like Imran uncle said, I mean, unfortunately, Indian tennis had two real golden periods, when Leander and me were really successful. And when Sania, I remember, my dad runs academy in Bangalore. And when Sania was, at the top of her game, there were so many girls who just wanted to come and say, we want to be like Sania. And that is, the AITA didn't have to do much. They just needed to ride the train of success and find a system that was going to empower all these kids. We've lost that opportunity, and today, we are underground. We're below ground zero, in my opinion.
It's very disappointing to hear that, Gargi. I mean, will you play before I go to Vatsal and take his comment and maybe request him to ask his question also, because he runs the Indian tennis daily, and how difficult is it for him to be able to do it when, as Imran said, no star is on the horizon and all this nonsense comes out? How difficult it is for someone like Vatsal? I want to ask him that, but before that, we sent some very sort of pertinent questions to Somdevv Devvarman, and the first one was about this current situation and what he thinks about it. Can you play Somdev's first answer, please, Gargi?
Hi Boria, hi Imran uncle, hi Heshi. Sorry I couldn't be there today. Thank you for inviting me, but I did have a commitment at the exact same time. However, let's get right to it. And the questions, let's talk about them. How disappointed am I with what's going on? Accusations, allegations, etc. Well, the problem is that I've been disappointed for a long time. This has been happening forever. Let's not forget that Mahesh, myself, Rohan, all of us were a part of a team that boycotted a Davis Cup tie. This was in 2013 in January. And the reason we boycotted was because we wanted a change. And at that time, we got what we wanted. And now, 10 years later, all of those changes are completely out of the system. So, it feels like we're back to, worse times than we were. So that's frustrating as a player to see the same sort of tone used by the AITA, accusing players, deflecting the blame, gaslighting, calling other things the problem when they are really the problem. That seems to be continuously happening, and it seems to be getting worse. So unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed over there, but I can't say I'm surprised because they're very consistent with their crappy behavior.
Vatsal, before Gargi takes her question to Mahesh, how difficult is it to run a sport where you are actually not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel as we speak? And are you hopeful about the elections?
So we've been running the channel for about 8 years now, and in the last 8 years, I think if we just take Sumit out of the picture, we've just digressed. We've been lucky to have Sumit doing well, but outside of that, even on the women's side, there's just one woman in the top 300, and she made it just 2 weeks ago. And apart from
Vatsal,
votes
just
and
I'll stop you once. The others, when whoever is speaking, if we could all mute our mics because there's a bit of an echo. So just mute your mics and whoever is speaking, just unmute yourself, please. Yeah, Vatsal.
is it better now? Perfect. Yeah, so outside of Sumit and of course Bobs in the double side, it's a really bleak scenario. We don't have a good pipeline of juniors who we can look up to outside of 2 or 3 names again. So I feel like, as Imran sir pointed out, we really need a pool of players to start playing the sport. And there are a lot of barriers in India to start playing tennis outside of the financial challenges. There's also this club culture where you really have to know people to start playing tennis. In my case as well, I had to really struggle to play the first hour of tennis in my life. So I feel like that needs to change. The US does it really well. They have public courts. I know we're really far from it, but we really need to look at solutions that will help the sport grow in masses.
Gargi, over to you.
Yes, and I wanted to ask Mahesh, you mentioned that your 10-year development program with Apollo Tires was shut down after a couple of years. Could you elaborate on the resistance that you faced from AITA and how it affected your efforts to nurture young talent?
I mean, there was resistance from day one, right? I don't think we want to delve into everything that happened there, but the bottom line in tennis, right? If you want to do something, you can do it on your own to a certain extent. You know, my kids were then starting to fear that will AITA even send their entries for AITA tournaments or ITF tournaments, and it just became a point where I had to constantly sit across. You know, at that time, Karthi Chidambaram was trying to play mediator between the secretary and myself, and he came to our center multiple times to try and find solutions. But yeah, as I said, you know, they finally shut down the program. You know, they spread enough negativity, toxicity, and rumors about what Mahesh was doing with the money. And you know, I keep saying again and again, there always is so much talent. You know, when I was growing up, we had so many juniors at the top of the game. Even before Leander came, Sandeep Kirtane was top 5 in the world, Nitin Kirtane, Rohit Reddy. So we always have an abundance of junior talent. It's a shame that we're not able to pick that talent, harness it, and get them to the international level. And after Vijay Anand did it for bat, it's just been a disaster.
Yeah, there are plenty of questions coming up. I'll ask some, actually sort of go to Imran with one of the questions. And there are sort of loads of questions in the comment section. Why don't big corporates get involved? Why are states like, except Tamil Nadu and a couple of others, not even hosting Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu? The others don't even organize challengers. Why did WTAP Tourism Hyderabad Open get scrapped off? Plenty of questions coming there, Imran Bhai, but tell me a quick fix. Is there a quick fix? Because only a long-term solution at this point in time, everything seems so bleak. Mahesh and I were chatting the other day about the elections. Do you see any hope out there? And if so, how? Imran Bhai, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, even if the elections go the way which is good for the game of tennis, I think it's going to take a long time before India can make its mark in tennis again. Because we've gone back a few. I don't agree with Mahesh where he thinks there are a few changes here and there can change the whole thing. The scenario cannot change so easily. Right now, there's no interest level in tennis left because there are no stars. You know, people are playing just for the heck of playing as a pastime, not to become champions. And that for me is a major worry. And for me, there are a few things that I have in mind. Like, you know, when Sania was coming up, the kind of finances that were required were about 50 lakhs a year. And that's huge amount of money for any individual to be raising. But if there are corporates involved and if the government is involved, say if you catch hold of, say, 10 real promising talents of the country, spending 50 lakhs on each of them, that's about 5 crores a year. I don't think that's big enough. That's too much for a country to put into a game of tennis where there's huge honor when someone from our country is representing us at the Grand Slams. And for me, that has always been a concern why the AITA did not get enough funding. They should have been able to convince the government or the companies to bring in those kind of funds that are needed to produce champions. Without that, it's just not possible. Mahesh would tell you that. Secondly, I think the talent needs to be identified at a very early stage. And I can tell you one thing that, you know, this was more than 10 years ago. I think Mahesh took me around to in one of the tournaments where Sumit was playing. We were at the same tournament, and he wanted my views on what I thought of Sumit, and he thought he was really talented. And you know, that's the kind of thing you can expect from someone who has already played the game. Someone like Mahesh could identify that talent that early, and that's what needs to be done, rather than waiting for something to happen. You know, that doesn't happen easily. Another thing that I would suggest is that, you know, what happens in Australia, like the former players, one player is made in charge of one of the major talents, so that he's responsible for their coaching, for their training, for their travel and everything else. So because it's only when you have done it once that you realize what it takes to get to that level, and then what it takes to stay at that level. And for that, it has to be someone who's who's achieved these things in the past. What I've learned over the last 20, 25 years on the circuit, being with Sania, what Mahesh would have learned over the last 30 years. I think those are things that we need to bring into the game if we are to produce the next talent.
Vatsal, when you see the allegations that were leveled against Sumit Nagal, the only fellow who has sort of, he's acted as a catalyst in the last 1 year to get all of us still get interested in tennis. I mean, I was there in Paris when he played the Olympics, for example. The kind of effort he put in to even make the Olympic Games was humongous. And then, by the way, he's playing the Olympics for India, not for Sumit Nagal. And then to be told that, oh, he's asking for money, he's a mercenary, he's faking an injury. What does it sort of come to you? How do you perceive this whole scenario before Gargi asks a second question of Mahesh?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because the only reason, like you mentioned, people are even talking about tennis in India. I see it at the ground level. I am involved with social media on a day-to-day basis, so I see comments and I see people talking about tennis, and it's only because of Sumit and the way he performed in the Australian Open. Obviously, Bopes as well, not to mention, not to forget his achievements. But it's really unfortunate. If you think about it, would someone like a Kohli or Rohit Sharma be accused like this by the BCCI? No chance. So to see that happening in tennis, it's really unfortunate, and it should not be happening. And there's been a lot of talk around it. Mr. Bhupati has also shared his thoughts. It's completely wrong, and it should not be happening.
Gargi?
Yeah. Asking Mahesh, you spoke about a deep-seated lack of trust between players and the AITA, citing Sumit Nagal's experience as an example. At this point, what specific measures would you propose to rebuild this trust and ensure transparency within the system?
Well, I think the first step is just to get some competent people at the AITA, right? I mean, I tell you, from the time that we've been playing, we get a check when we play Davis Cup. We do not know how the total amount is arrived. We do not know what the split of the check is. We do not know how much, what the percentage is. We do not know how much is coming from sponsorship. We just get a check. And all of us in Indian tennis have asked the question is, what is the breakdown? For 30 years, we haven't got it, right? So there is no transparency. We don't know. We don't even know if that's the right amount. A lot of the times, in the last 4 years, the boys have been telling me the ITF prize money versus what the check they're getting is a vast discrepancy. And Sumit, I'll be clear here that Sumit did ask for money, right? But Sumit, all he did was he just told Rohit Rajpal, I do not want to jump into a controversy every tie. Just commit to me $50,000 for the entire year. He did not ask for $50,000 for a tie. He said $50,000 for the entire year, which is 3 ties. What really irritated me was one journalist called me and said he asked for 50,000 above the prize money for the next tie. One journalist called me and said he asked for 50,000 to play against Sweden. He did not. I have seen the email. He asked for the whole year. He asked 5 other things. He asked for a number 5 player to be treated fairly and guaranteed on the team. He asked for the right physio so that they can take care of their bodies. He asked whenever Rohit Rajpal decides to step down as captain, if he can have a say in the captaincy is number 1. And by the way, Rohit Rajpal wrote him a very nice response saying that, listen, you are a number 1 player. You are a number 1 priority. I agree with all your points. I'm going to put this in front of the executive committee. And then he got another response saying, I've put it in front of the executive committee and all is good. Let's go ahead. So him pulling out of Davis Cup has nothing to do with money. Everything he asked for and requested, he got. Unfortunately, he went into the US Open with a back injury, and this has blown out of proportion thanks to one rogue old man who I don't like.
Mahesh, a follow-up on that before we play a Somdevv comment on Davis Cup. Where is this coming from? I mean, Indian cricket players get 7 crores, 10 crores as annual contracts. They get several lakhs for every test match, every ODI, every T20, plus 20 crores for IPL, 5 crores for IPL, whatever it is. So if this guy is asking for $14,000 or $15,000 per tie, so you're actually talking about 7-8 lakh rupees for your number 1 tennis player. So even if he asks for that money, big deal. If he asks for $100,000, where's the problem? Why is it that if somebody asks for money, he becomes a mercenary? He's actually going to play Davis Cup, representing India, give his best. Right? He's not taking a penny on tour. What is this nonsense? Where is this whole mercenary and painting him a villain coming from? And how do administrators time and again get away with such rubbish?
So I don't think we can compare tennis to cricket. Obviously, the money is minuscule compared to cricket. I mean, when Leander and me were playing, at the highest level, we were playing in the Asian zone, and when we were playing ties, I don't even think we were getting close to a lakh to play the doubles match. So we're not playing Davis Cup for the money, right? I think Sumit sent this email just so that there was peace of mind that every tie he didn't have to fight and ask for accounts. Just commit the whole year, and I will commit the whole year so that I don't have any drama. And again, where is it coming from with the AITA? I think it's just like we said earlier in the show, it's deflection, right? I think everybody was upset with the way the team lost. I mean, Davis Cup losses can happen, but the way the team lost, they didn't win a set. What was the thought process? Some people are asking if Bala was the right choice for singles. He could have been. I mean, with a fast court and the way Bala plays, he could have been. I mean, I'm not saying anybody was right or wrong, but there were a lot of questions thrown towards the captain / AITA, and they thought they deflected by throwing Sumit under the bus, which was very frustrating.
Gargi, before you ask Imran the second question, I mean your next question rather, can we have Somdev's comment on Davis Cup? And here's something fascinating. Somdevv Devvarman tells us that every other country, every player from every other country looks forward to playing the Davis Cup. When it comes to India, it is the most stressful week for an Indian player when he or she he plays the Davis Cup, and goes on to elaborate why he's saying so. Listen in. Yes, Gargi.
Playing Davis Cup for India is very stressful. Why? Can you elaborate, please? Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, at the start of Davis Cup, for me, was very different than towards the end of my career. For start, it was stressful because of the Lee Hesh situation. Kind of had to pick camps, and to be fair, they were both cool with me, and I have a great relationship with both still. Now, later on, it kind of became about coming up with a change, trying to do the right thing. I was the number one player for a long time, so we tried to make positive changes, and it was just fighting the system. I mean, to start things off, it was whether it was the coaches had the right intentions or the right ideas. I felt like every time I went into a Davis Cup tie, all I was told is how bad my net game was, or how bad my volleys were, and we worked on things I wasn't supposed to work on. And then I would finish the tie, come back, and my coaches would be like, what's going on with your game? So that's one example, but also the stress of it, revolting and boycotting ties isn't fun. And to think of it, 10 years ago, we got 11 players to come and join us for a reason. And even now, everything that we're saying is accepted by everybody, but it's just not being seen through as a proper plan. So, and it's the same thing circulating time and time again. It's the same people on the top. It's the executive committees that make unanimous decisions baselessly. And it's when you're around that environment, I feel like it's stressful. It's not fun to go out there, and we would still go out there. We would still do it, but why are we fighting a fight when we should be trying to win for the country? And that's the unfortunate thing that players have to deal with all the time.
Over to you, Gargi.
Yes, and my question to Imran right now is, how would you compare, India's tennis infrastructure and support with other tennis powerhouses like Spain and France or even China? Because at this point, it's about disaster management. And what key aspects should India prioritize to elevate its global standing?
No, firstly, I don't think I can compare it at all, because I think our infrastructure or the help that we get from the association is negligible. Having said that, I think there is a lot to be done. Like I said, for that, I think a lot of our ex-players like Mahesh, Sanya, Leander need to get in, because, over the last 20 years, what I have learned through travel is something that nobody could have taught me in any other way except through I had the advantage of watching the game change over the years, and the balls change, the surfaces change, the coaching methods change, and I've learned so much. I can tell you with authority that today what I know about women's tennis, nobody in India would know enough, because I've watched and been part of that system for over 20 years, having had the privilege of vibing with the topmost coaches of the world and some of the top players of the world. I've got ideas. I've learned so much from them. And these are things that, the association needs to cash in on, try and get these kind of inputs from me and from Sania and from Mahesh, Somdevv, and everyone else who's played the game at that level, because these things can't be taught by sitting out here, and that's just not possible. Secondly, I'd just like to elaborate on the point that Mahesh was making, that even if Sumit has asked for money, tennis is a different game. It's not like cricket where whatever money you get, you keep it in your pocket. Here, you have to spend money to stay on the circuit, and every penny that you save is an extra tournament. And for that, I think we need to understand that. Obviously, the association has not understood that basic ingredient that goes into making of a tennis player.
Vatsal, what's the way forward? For how long will you continue sort of this crusade? I mean, I understand Mahesh will do it because he's who he is, Mahesh Bhupati. I mean, one of the greatest India has, so he can fight on. And Imran Mirza is who he is. But what about you and me? And I will have other sports to do. Gargi will have other sports to do. You will say, okay, I will start a new portal about Indian badminton or Indian shooting. To hell with tennis. How long is it about us, fans or stakeholders who are not directly involved? How do you keep supporting a sport where there is no light at the end of the tunnel? Vatsal?
Yeah, I feel like the next step, or rather the hope, is that after the elections, we have someone leading the sport who has the right intentions. I think that's the most important thing, because if you have the right intentions, everything will fall into place. You will seek the advice of the right people, as we have two of them on the show today. And if the intentions are not right, then you would do your thing and try to do things that are not supposed to be done. So I think once we get someone who understands what Indian tennis needs and is open to opinion or open to advice from people who have the knowledge to do so, the sport will move forward.
Okay. Gargi, can you play Somdev's final answer, please, before we sort of take the final round of questions from all our guests? Because already, I think on Twitter, as we speak, the number of people watching us are considerable. We've got about 1,500 people watching us concurrently live on Twitter, and we are getting enormous number of questions there. So why don't you play Somdev's third answer before I go to Mahesh and Imran?
What's the way forward for the sport? How do we solve this? Good question. I mean, let's just take, for example, right after this Davis Cup tie, the first thing that the AITA did was they threw Sumit and Yuki and Mukund under the bus for not playing despite being called. Most of that is not true, and we know that most of that is not true. But right after they did that, so first things first is, why do they consistently just put their players down? And that's just been happening for way too long. But second, right after they put that post out, the next post they bragged about how great they've done and the fact that they have 120 coaches or 130 coaches, newly accredited coaches this year. Where are these coaches? Who are these coaches? Where are these coaches? Where are they getting their accreditations from, or whatever certifications that they get? And everybody knows you can't become a tennis coach in 3 days of a course. You have to go out there, spend a lot of time, see what the tournament's like. I mean, there's 10,000 things that need to happen in order for you to become a good coach. And then in their reports, you start seeing that they want to have, level 1, level 2, level 3 academies. Who decides this? And how is that beneficial for our system? So, you start seeing all of these things, and it all points to the same direction, that it's been governed as poorly as can be, and it's been that way for a very long time. So how do we solve this? I don't know if Imran uncle and Mahesh will agree with me, but you got to get the bad guys out. It's as simple as that. They don't have the right intentions, they don't have the right expertise, they clearly misuse power time and time again. You got to get them out, and we got to rework the system. And I know that it's a pipe dream, and I know that I'm not alone in this thought, and I know that most people and parents and players and coaches and everybody in the infrastructure wants the system to get better, but we have to make a bold move at some time and do it, because otherwise this is going to continue, and that's not the path that we want to go down. We want to go towards a positive path, a path that's actually developing the sport, that's developing the game, that's developing coaches, and beautiful things can happen for tennis in India, but needs a change now. Anyway, Boria, Imran uncle, Mahesh, sorry, I didn't mean to bore you guys, but thank you for continuing this conversation. It is a very important one. And we do need to stay on top of it, because I agree with uncle and I agree with Mahesh. If we do not have these conversations candidly, openly, it is a tough space that our sport is in. So hope for better times ahead.
Gargi, your question to Mahesh. Mahesh, Gargi wants to ask you a controversial question and was messaging me, can I? I said, just fire away.
All right. So, Mahesh, you mentioned that AITA accused you of using sponsorship money to buy a house in London. How do personal attacks like these affect your motivation to engage with the system? And did you not think of contesting it?
No, I mean, it's like beating my head against a brick wall, which I actually did for 20 years till then I finally waved the white flag, right? I mean, contesting it against whom? I mean, I know I didn't buy the house with their money, so who do I need to defend myself against? I mean, for me, I put my head down and do the work I can. At that time, once the Apollo program shut down, there was an incredible talent called Sumit Nagal. My only focus was to make sure that he didn't suffer because he didn't have money to pursue the sport. We found a way to raise private funds and send him to Canada. He stayed there for 3 years. Then we moved him to Germany. And today we're all happy for his success and following it. Thankfully, he's there in the top 100. So I don't need to defend anything. And for me, at the end of the day, we do this because we love the sport. Tennis has given me everything I have in my life today, and we will continue to do what we can if people allow us. That's the bottom line.
Okay, final 8 minutes on the show. Mahesh, you are Mahesh Bhupati, Imran Mirza, one of the most, I mean, come on, everybody knows either you or Imran Bhai or Sania or Som. Why are you guys not contesting the elections? Why don't you guys throw your hat in the ring? Take the bull by the horn, fight the elections, throw these people out, take control. What's the problem? I mean, why is it that AITA remains the AITA that it is and there is no change? Why can't players take control? Imran Bhai, you can also answer that.
Well, as far as my personal case is concerned, I think we need younger men, and probably Mahesh would be the right person to be in that spot, or maybe Sania or Leander or someone who's already played the game. My main important point is that it has to be someone who has seen the tennis at the highest level, because it takes a lot to get there and it takes a lot to stay there, and it's only those who have been there who can take the right decisions. And I think I'm probably not at the right stage of my life to be doing that. But my advice is always there for whoever is there, whoever wants it. And I'd love to work in tandem with someone like a Mahesh or Leander or Sania.
Mahesh, why don't you do it?
I think we might have to. I think I've been talking extensively to Bobs and Sania, Purav, so everybody over the last 2 days. I think, this election probably is too late since it's happening next Sunday or next Saturday. But I think we might have to find a way to inject ourselves into different federations. I think the good thing is that all of us are aligned, right? I mean, we're not trying to get anything out of it except propel Indian tennis in the right direction. And as Sania mentioned to me today, actually, when we spoke, I think all of us need to take a specific role and contribute in that form, because, we have so much to give, honestly, compared to where we are at the level of tennis in the country today, that it's a crying shame. I mean, whoever wins this election on Sunday, I sincerely hope they still call us. Right, because we don't need to have an elected post to, in my opinion, make a difference. Like I said, there is no better person to run a high performance program in India than Somdevv Devvarman. If people are worried about raising funds, I can promise you, between Sania, Rohan, myself, we can raise funds for tennis. We don't need the AITA to raise funds, right? We've done it before. We can do it again because we are aligned. And Sania has an incredible academy in Hyderabad with residential facilities. So Rohan has the same in Bangalore. So we just need them to stay out of our way and stay away from conflict, right? If they let us do our stuff and empower us with some kind of blessing, that's half the battle won.
Somebody just said, PS, AITA officials should be Mahesh, Leander, Sania, Bopanna and Somdev. That's it. Brilliant. Vatsal, any question for either Mahesh or Imran Bhai? If you want to ask something, we got 5 more minutes.
I think we've covered most of the important topics. So I don't have any more questions as of now.
Okay, so then let
Make
me
a
ask
couple
you
of
the
points.
final
If
one
you don't
before I
mind, I'll
go.
make a couple of points, Boria.
Yes, please.
One of the probably one of the things where we are going wrong is when I saw this picture the other day in Sweden, where the officials, there were about more than half a dozen of them standing in front, while the players were at the back, just trying to look over the shoulders. I think that tells a big story about how tennis should not be handled. That's one. And the other thing was that, I was told the other day that we have a new number one in women's tennis. There's Sahaja Yamlapalli or someone. And I checked on her, and she was like about 295 in the world. And I think that for me is a truly disappointing thing. If the number one in India is going to be 295 in the world, I think we have a long, long way to go, And in men's tennis, apart from Sumit, I don't think we have anyone in the top 320 or 330. I think Ramkumar is around 330, 340. So, this is very disappointing. And obviously, whatever has been done over the last few years has completely failed, and we need to change that.
I will also comment on that photograph which went viral with the officials in front. I mean, this was plain shocking. This was plain shocking. As a scribe who has covered Indian sport for a good 3 decades, we've just seen the Paralympics and we won 29 medals. And every competition, and I'm putting it on record, the president Devendra Jhajaria, was a double gold medalist and a silver medal winner, was there. But each time there was an interview, he would push the athlete in front and say, "Mere bare mein nahi hai, inke bare mein hai." Each time, that is what was going on. And India is in the top 20 of the world as far as parasport is concerned. You see other sports. I mean, how many people in the country know a Kalikesh Singhdeo? How many people know Manu Bhakar? There is something good that is happening in shooting. Take hockey, take cricket, take other sports, take badminton. Clearly, our officials need to understand that I pay to watch a Mahesh Bhupati or a Leander Paes or a Sania Mirza or a Rohan Bopanna and not to watch an AITA official. Not to watch. If I see that photograph, the moment I see that photograph, I will be turned off. And you've got to understand that. You're not that great looking also. I'm sorry. You've got to understand that. You're not a Salman Khan. You don't have six-pack abs. For God's sake, get your act together and smell the damn coffee. This is Indian tennis that you're toying with. So we've got to get our act together. Final 1 minute each to all my guests. Vatsal, you go first. Imran Bhai and Mahesh will have the closing words. Vatsal, you go first.
I think the example you mentioned about parasport, your explanation had the answer. So Mr. Jhajaria is a former athlete who was in taking the reins in Paris during the Paralympics. So I feel like that empathy can only come if you've been in their position, you've been through that toil, and you know how they feel. And that is the exact need of the hour for Indian tennis as well. You need, like we've been discussing, we need people who've been there, out there on the tour, understood how the game has evolved over the years, and we need those people in important positions, either on paper or, like Mr. Bhupati mentioned, involved, at least involved and heard and consulted at the right moments. And I feel that's the way forward.
Gargi, I'll give your minute now. I mean, as one of the most talented young journalists, you watch your parasport, you watch your Olympic sport, you watch your badminton, you watch your F1. How much of tennis do you watch, and does it actually interest you? I mean, seeing what is going on, will you actually be interested in watching what is going on? The scandals just put you off. The controversy just puts you off.
Absolutely. And to speak about my generation, how we come about things, how we come across things and sports is through social media, is through flipping through Netflix or this or that. And we're seeing all this coverage, from incredible coverage when it comes to documentaries or social media or digital journalism. We're seeing para sports come in, we're seeing Olympic sports come in, but I have not seen any tennis get that sort of coverage when it comes to all of this digital footprint. And that's how I started playing sport as well. So if that's not happening, I don't understand how Indian tennis can increase its global standing if there's no footprint in India only. It doesn't make any sense.
Imran, by closing words.
Yeah, while accepting the fact that there are other associations that are doing a really good job compared to tennis, I would also like to point out that tennis is not an easy game to make a mark in. Reason being that, it's a truly global sport, if ever there was one. And there are about 220 countries that play the sport. It's not about any Asian or, having any strong countries in a particular game in certain areas. So, that's one of the reasons that it's very difficult to make. You'd rarely see one country dominate tennis for a long time. And in that sense, tennis is truly a difficult game. Also, the other part is where a player has to fund himself right through the growing years. And that's something that's quite unique compared to some of the other sports where they are paid for by the associations. And these things will have to change. These are problems that even international players combat. And I think if we can get over these problems, I think we'll be in a good place.
Mahesh, you have the closing words.
Yeah, I think I'll amplify what Imran uncle said and said tennis is not a difficult game. Tennis is almost an impossible game, right? I mean, the physicality of the sport today is mind-boggling how it's evolved in the last decade. The last two boys who made it to the top 100 for us have been physical specimens, Somdevv and Sumit. And that is the only way to make it in tennis today, right? The days of talent are all over. You got to be the hardest worker, multiple fold in the room. So that is the reason that, we need to do more. We got to start somewhere. I'm glad the conversation started. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but one thing is for sure, that it is between the four of us who've been talking actively over the last couple of days, we will definitely do something.
Glad to hear that you will do something, because that's where it starts. And from our standpoint, we will amplify that. I mean, the reason we did this conversation even on a day when India won a Chekhov test match with 280, by 280 runs is because we are committed to trying and playing our part in trying to help the sport. We've published Mahesh's piece. We have done multiple posts. We've done this live show, and it's not going to be a one-off. We will continue with this crusade. We will want change, and we will collaborate with Vatsal. We will collaborate with his team. We will try and get everyone together to try and be heard, so that whatever little part we can play for the betterment of the sport, we will. On that note, Imran Mirza, Vatsal, Mahesh Bhupati, and of course, Gargi, thank you very much. Somdevv, you couldn't join us, but thanks for the answers. To everyone watching, the glass is always half full than half empty. It seems half empty, but let's make it half full at least, and that's a start. To everybody who watched us, this is just the start of the crusade. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for watching.